The city was quiet that night, though thousands of people were awake and whispering. The streets were covered in bright lights from tall towers that seemed to reach the sky. In the center of the grand square stood the throne platform, waiting for the queen. Soldiers kept watch in every direction, their boots clicking against the stone. People gathered close, holding their breath, because they all knew this night was different from every other night. Queen Alara was not like other rulers. She was known for the strange and powerful sense she carried. She could feel the blood of every single person around her, as if each heartbeat was a thought spoken directly into her mind. Nobles believed this made her untouchable. Generals believed this made her more dangerous than any weapon. The people simply whispered her name and watched her with awe. Some said she never grew tired. Others claimed she had not aged for years. The truth was never spoken aloud because those who ruled alongside her feared both her gift and her silence. She never explained where her gift came from, but none could deny it. When she looked at a crowd, she already knew who was brave, who was afraid, and who longed for power more than life itself. On this night, a long line of chosen men and women stood upon the stones of the square waiting for her judgment. Their names were known across the city, for they came from high families and respected houses. They had trained for battle, carried wealth and pride, and believed themselves destined to stand at her side. Among them, squeezed to the edge of the line, was a young soldier. His name was Daniel Rowe. Born to a dock worker and a seamstress, Daniel had no fortune, no rich bloodline, and no family glory. In truth, no one expected him to catch her eye at all. He stood quietly with his spear, keeping his eyes down, trying not to draw attention. As the crowd murmured, a sudden silence spread. The queen walked forward, every step slow and graceful. The air itself seemed colder as she came closer. Her eyes were sharp, glowing beneath the lamplight. Heads bowed. No one dared to move. Tonight she would choose for the first time. Tonight her strange gift would change someone's life forever. The queen sat upon her throne made of dark stone at the center of the square. Her eyes moved slowly from one person to the next, and the silence of the crowd pressed down like a heavy blanket. Each person in the line tried to stand taller, tried to look stronger, tried to hide their fear. Every heartbeat was loud to them, but to her, it was louder still, because she could feel it beating inside her mind. The first to step forward was a tall man named Victor Dale, a soldier from a noble family. He carried a sword at his side and wore the colors of his house with pride. He knelt deeply before the queen and offered his pledge, speaking strong words of loyalty. His heart, however, beat too fast, filled with hunger and need for honor. The queen listened to that sound and said nothing. Next came Clara Hill, the daughter of a powerful council leader. She was clever, and her family had wealth, and she bowed with a grace taught since childhood. Her voice was bold as she declared she would serve. But the queen felt her pulse racing with pride and ambition. Nothing in her tone could hide it. One by one, more men and women came forward. Each looked to the queen with hope, each dreamed of being chosen. But again and again, the queen's calm eyes found a storm within them. She saw not loyalty, but desire. She saw not courage, but fear. The crowd grew restless, whispering to one another. Why had she chosen no one yet? Why did she only watch them in silence? At the edge of the line, Daniel Rowe waited quietly. His plain armor was different from the shining metals of the nobles. He had no proud symbols or great sword, only the simple spear he had trained with since boyhood. Others in the line looked at him with half-hidden smiles, certain he would be passed over. But when the queen's gaze moved down the line and settled at last on Daniel, she stopped. Her eyes narrowed slightly as if caught by something she could not ignore. For the first time that night she leaned forward upon her throne, her lips parting as though she could hear a sound no one else could hear. The murmurs of the crowd faded into expectant silence. The queen rose slowly from her throne, and the sound of her steps echoed across the stone square. No one spoke. The torchlight flickered across her face, and her shadow stretched tall over the ground. She walked past the nobles, each of them certain she had come to choose them. Victor held his chin high, Clara bowed her head, and the others fought to stay calm, their hearts pounding like drums. But she did not pause for them. She moved past every warrior, every lord and lady, until her eyes rested on the young soldier at the end of the line. Daniel still held his spear close, his hands steady, though his clothes were plain and his stance unpolished. He did not look away when the queen's gaze found him.
Us.
She stopped before him. The crowd watched in disbelief. No one had expected her to walk toward the dockworker's son. The silence became so deep that every breath could be heard. The queen studied him closely. Within her mind, she felt the blood of each candidate like the sound of music, loud and wild inside her heart. Greed, ambition, fear, vanity, those notes screamed in every other choice. But from Daniel, there came only a calm and steady rhythm, strong as a drumbeat in winter. It was steady, neither weak nor wild. It was the sound of someone who would not break. Her voice rang clear. She did not whisper, but spoke so that all would hear. She looked at Daniel and said, "You are not the fastest, nor the finest, nor the proudest here. Yet your blood does not tremble. It holds a strength that will not fade." Gasps swept through the square. Nobles pressed forward, some with anger and disbelief. Many muttered that it was impossible that a man of no house and no title could not be chosen. Generals frowned, their eyes sharp with insult. The dock-born soldier could not stand among the mighty. But the queen lifted her hand, and the crowd fell quiet again. She pointed to the stone at her feet. "Kneel," she said. Daniel hesitated only a moment, then lowered himself carefully onto his knee. His face was calm, his heart still steady. And in that instant, with the grand city watching, the queen made her first choice. The city did not rest after the queen's choice. Instead, fires of anger began to burn in the hearts of nobles and generals who felt dishonored. Whispers grew into talks, and talks became open arguments. Many said the queen had been blinded by weakness. Others were certain that enemies from rival cities would soon march against them, seeing her choice as a sign of folly. Daniel walked through the halls of the fortress with a heavy heart. Wherever he went, soldiers stared at him, some with laughter, others with cold contempt. They called him unworthy. A commoner dressed as a knight, and many swore they would never follow his lead. He tried not to answer, but inside him the weight of his new role pressed harder than any armor. Queen Alara was not shaken. She called her council and spoke with firm voice that her decision was final. She reminded them that strength is not always born in noble houses, and loyalty is not found in proud bloodlines. Though many bowed to her words in fear, she saw doubt in their eyes. Soon doubt turned into challenge. United enemies from beyond the city walls gathered their armies. Banners waved over the horizon as war machines rolled forward. The sky itself was lit by the glow of their engines as they prepared to strike halcyon spires. The rebellion had arrived sooner than expected, and the streets filled with the sound of marching soldiers. At dawn, the queen rode at the front of her army. Her crimson cloak flew behind her, her eyes bright with fire. Beside her rode Daniel, his spear ready in his hand. Those who had doubted him whispered again. Yet when the gates opened and the first clash of war shook the ground, it was not the nobles who held the lines together. Daniel's calm voice rose over the fear of battle. He stood firm where others wavered. When soldiers broke rank, he led them back. When fear spread across the faces of common fighters, he gave them courage. The queen's power was fierce, but Daniel's steadiness held the army like stone. In the storm of blood and fire, the dock-born soldier proved he was not chosen by mistake. He endured where others faltered, and the battle raged on with him at the heart of it. The war lasted many days, and the land around the city was covered with smoke and fire. Armies clashed again and again, and each time the queen led her forces with unshaken strength. At her side, Daniel did not falter. When the sky turned red with burning towers, he held the line. When soldiers were ready to run, he spoke steady words that gave them courage. The nobles who once mocked him began to see a different truth. Though they had titles and lands, their pride alone could not keep the people standing. It was Daniel's calm will that gave the army strength equal to the queen's power. The rhythm of his heart never wavered, and those near him felt it too, as if his very steadiness passed into their blood. Finally, the enemies broke and scattered across the fields. Cheers rose as the banners of the queen's forces stood high once more. Halcyon Spires was saved, not by the proud ones who thought themselves mighty, but by a soldier who had been overlooked by nearly everyone. When the smoke cleared, the queen gathered her council and the people in the great hall. Sunlight passed through glass windows, and struck the stone floor in golden lines. Soldiers, nobles, and common folk alike filled the chamber, eager to hear her words. Queen Alara stood tall before them, her voice strong but calm. She told them that blood can reveal many truths, but blood alone is not the measure of greatness. She said courage may be born in any home, whether noble or poor, and loyalty cannot be bought with wealth. She turned then and placed her hand on Daniel's shoulder. The hall went silent as she declared that he had proven himself not through ambition but through his strength to endure when all others bent and broke. She named him her chosen champion, not for one day, but for all the days to come. Voices rose in the hall, first in surprise, then in respect. Even those who had mocked him before now bowed their heads. And Daniel, the dock-born soldier who once hid at the edge of the line, stood proud beside his queen. From that day, people whispered not of fear but of hope, for if such a queen could see greatness in him, then greatness might live quietly in anyone.